Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday night. Welcome to Nutrition Demystified. I'm very excited about the conversation we're having tonight. So excited that I'm in my office. I've got my notes, I've got my water, my tea, and apparently I've got my cat because she was sitting here and didn't want to leave when I came in, so she's here for our talk too. But tonight we're talking about stress eating and emotional eating because life is crazy right now, right? However this situation is affecting you, whether it is or isn't, it's affecting everybody. Stress is just in the air. The atmosphere is heavy. Most of us are spending all of our time at home, where we're just in the house with our thoughts and our food, and it can be a scary place to be. So hence our discussion tonight. So we're talking about emotional eating and stress eating. So what I'm not going to do is tell you to just not buy the snacks so that you don't eat them. That's not what we're here for. We're here to really kind of dive a little bit deeper. As you guys know, I like to do and kind of look at what's going on with emotional eating. So we're going to look at this in two, she's finally leaving, two kind of sides of things. So we're going to look at the biological, scientific component to emotional eating and stress eating, as well as the psychological and emotional aspect of emotional and stress eating. And I want to start with the science. I'm going to start with the science side. So stress puts a higher demand on our body, period. Whether it's mental stress, whether it's physical stress, whether we're being chased by a bear or late answering an email, stress puts a higher energetic demand on our bodies. So Q 2020, we're in the middle of a pandemic, we're all fucking stressed. Period, end of story. That puts a higher energetic demand on our bodies. It affects our body's blood sugar regulation systems. It affects the way our body manages energy. And when those systems are affected, commonly what we're going to see is a tendency to want quick energy, to head for things like the sugars and the carbs, because our body is literally like, I am stressed, I need energy, and I need it fast. So that's fact. That's science. We as humans are wired to eat. In our evolutionary history, it was to our benefit to eat everything that was available to us at once because we didn't know when the next time food was going to be available. When we were back hunting and gathering our own food, our body was like, yes, we'll eat it all and we'll keep it, we'll store it just in case I don't get more for a long period of time. It was literally to our benefit to eat everything. Fast forward to 2020, when we have permanent access to food for the most part. Most of us are privileged enough to have easy access to food, right? But we still have that evolutionary response where we're like, oh, all the food is available. I need to eat all the food. So if you are finding yourself in that situation, you're not failing, you're not broken because you want to eat the food. It's literally part of your biology. We're going to talk about it a little bit more. Another thing to look at on the biology side when it comes to emotional eating is, what are the things you find yourself eating or wanting to eat? So I'm going to do a lot of kind of question posing. My purpose is to kind of get you thinking a little bit here on this topic. So what are the things that you're eating? Is it cheese? Are you buying blocks of cheese and eating all the cheese? Yes. It may be, from a biology side, that your body is deficient in fats right now and you need more fatty acids. Are you wanting to eat all of the chocolate? Is that what you're craving right now, and is that what you're emotionally eating? It may be that your body's deficient in magnesium. That's a biological response. Are you craving all the salty, the crunchy, the chips? It may be that you are dehydrated and or deficient in electrolytes. So there are literally biological reasons that our body wants to eat certain things and that it responds to stress with eating. So if you're in that situation, the main point of all that is just for you to know you're not broken. This makes sense. And so now we're going to switch gears. So we're going to kind of talk about the psychological side and the actual emotional side to eating. So I feel like our generation especially, there's just so much conditioning built into us around food. And obviously I didn't live in previous generations, but my guess is that it's more so. Like nutrition has, I feel like, really just become a major topic in like the last 50-ish years or so. Like our grandparents for the most part weren't, analyzing their macros and their calories. They were just eating food, and it's this kind of new phenomenon that partly due to advances in science, which is great. We can dive into this and figure out how to kind of optimize, this science. But we've got so much conditioning, and we've got a lot of dogma around food. I feel like a lot of other girls my age, women my age, who might be watching, we probably dealt with our moms our whole life trying to lose weight or eat healthy, only eat certain things, eat this, don't eat that, eat less. These are things we grew up watching our mothers do and then thinking that we had to do as well, because that was what society demanded at the time. Low fat, low calorie, these were things that for a long time were prioritized and kind of beat into us, whether we knew it or not, and are still happening in the backs of our minds. So this obsession with less, 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 I just want us to think about that a little bit. Like, what is conditioned into us about what we think we should be doing that isn't serving us or isn't accurate? Fortunately, the science is coming back around, right, where there's less of this fear around fat, just as an example. But some of it's still out there. I still have to have conversations with clients about how eating fat does not make you fat, XYZ. It's not a bad thing. It's a necessary thing for your health. But this is the question I want to pose when it comes to emotional eating. What are you telling yourself? What has been conditioned into you around food? Okay, so like I said, a lot of it tends to be just less. This obsession with eating less calories means I lose weight, and less. And in some scenarios, sure, we need to eat less, but when we're like, I should be eating less, and then we're eating all of the things, it creates this extra stress. So what are these conditioned beliefs around eating that you have? Just think about it. We'll take 5 minutes. Think about, what are you telling yourself? Because we all have it. And then I want to kind of switch gears into really the emotional connection to food. So food is life, literally. Food is love. Food is emotion. Most of us can think back to times, memories, happy memories, sad memories, and food is a part of that. And we have this significant emotional connection to food. And so when it comes to the topic of emotional eating and stress eating, I always urge myself and my clients to look at, why is that happening? So for an example, I can think of when I was a kid and I went to the grocery store with my mom, and we always went to the deli counter and she ordered whatever, and then she would always get one slice of cheese on the side for me to eat, and I would sit in the carriage and I would fold it up into little mini pieces and I would eat my cheese, and I was the happiest kid in the world. So I have this really positive association with cheese. And we're in a time right now where I am stressed about my mother's health. I'm stressed about how this might affect her and my dad. And so is some of this eating I'm doing to make me feel more connected to them, to make me feel like I'm controlling that situation. So what are those ties that we have to the foods that we're eating, and what are our patterns, right? So I know there's literally a commercial on TV where a girl is sad because her boyfriend broke up with her and her mom brings her chocolate. Like, that's the commercial for the chocolate. And I'm not trying to knock that. I think they know what they're doing and they're advertising, right? But my main point is we have these emotional connections, we have these habits, and we have these associations. So if you're finding yourself in a situation where you're, stress eating and eating based off emotion, step one is to acknowledge that, to be gentle with yourself. Like, we're all stressed. It's part of our biology, like we talked about before. Like, it's okay if you feel like it's something you need to stop or shouldn't be doing, whatever. Let's examine why it's happening. What comfort is the food providing you right now? And I think kind of the craziest part of this whole pandemic we're in, not to like get a little off topic and deep, is like we're all kind of forced to face some shit right now. We're forced to, communicate effectively with our partners because we're forced into these close quarters. We're forced to be with our own thoughts because we can only distract ourselves so much when we have to stay inside all day, right? So we're forced to reflect. So a very common way to avoid that is to numb, to distract, and food is one of the easiest ways to do that, right? To just eat instead of having to think about what's actually happening, instead of actually having to acknowledge the stress that I'm feeling, instead of having to acknowledge the other feelings that this situation might be bringing up. So if that's the situation you're in right now, struggling with your stress eating and your emotional eating, the biggest thing I want you to kind of do is face, what is this stress? What are these emotions that I'm having? Why am I using this food or food in general as a way to deal with that? Not as a way to judge yourself, but as a way to bring light to what's happening. And my hope is that you can then start to recognize these patterns. So I know, ice cream's one of mine, right? I love ice cream. It provides me significant comfort. And when I'm stressed, I want to eat it. And I know this pattern I have. So when I'm having that, like, I just want ice cream right now, what I can do is at least, kind of take a bird's eye view and be like, okay, like, do I really want it? If I do, cool. Do I not? If, what's really happening? If I want it, I'll eat it. But if I'm using it to kind of avoid something else, maybe that's something that I need to address with myself. So I don't know if this is maybe what we kind of expected when tuning in to talk about emotional eating, but like I said, I'm not here to tell you, like, just don't buy the unhealthy snacks. Like, we all know that's bullshit, and, that's not going to work. When it comes to stress eating and emotional eating, we need to deal with the stress and the emotions. We need to examine our connection to food, because if food is emotional, we have these connections with food and how they relate to other people in our lives and times in our life and feelings that we feel. So when it comes to emotional eating, that's what we are forced to look at. What are these emotions? How can I deal with them maybe in a way that isn't food? How can I be okay with the fact that sometimes I am going to use food to help myself feel comforted in that situation, and I'm not a bad person because of it. I'm a human. So that's kind of the emotional side. And then we started by talking about the biological side. So I do have a blog up on my website that talks about different cravings, salt, sugar, chocolate, and what those can mean from a scientific perspective, like what might my body actually be needing when I'm craving this specific thing, and how could I maybe fulfill that need in a way that is more nutrient focused and actually gives my body what it needs. So I do have a blog post on that on my website. If you want it, you can message me or just head to my website.